Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film Hamnet, directed by Chloe Zhao. I am so disappointed with the direction of Chloe Zhao's films. There are some positive things to say about Hamnet, but I really don't think that all the hype about it and the Oscar talk is justified. I love Zhao's early work that has a really distinctive sensibility. I really enjoyed Songs My Brother Taught Me and The Rider. I loved how these films blended fiction with a kind of documentary texture. I loved her use of non-professional actors. I loved how these films immersed in authentic lives with compassion and beauty. They're pure art house cinema. Nomadland moved a few steps closer to mainstream cinema, but still retained something of that quiet, observational style. I thought Nomadland was well deserving of its Oscar success. I was very disappointed with Zhao's Marvel film Eternals. This was kind of prestige Hollywood filmmaking with none of those sensibilities from her earlier work. I do think Hamnet is a better film than Eternals, but again, she's making another Hollywood blockbuster. I don't want to say that she's sold out. Maybe in her position, I would take the big money, big financing, shoot for more Oscars. I can't blame her. Clearly, people are enjoying this film too. Clearly, people are leaving the cinema in tears. For me, however, it's just disappointing when you see what someone is capable of and then they produce standard Hollywood fare like this. It's not terrible. Let's start with what's good about it. The first thing to say is that the film is visually stunning. I'd say that the cinematography is its biggest strength. You feel the soil, the damp grass, the smoke in the air. Nature isn't just background decoration, it's a constant presence. This earthy atmosphere gives the film weight and texture. I do think that Zhao has a remarkable gift for landscape. In all her films, physical environment isn't just scenery, it's emotional space. Even in Eternals, the desert sequences are the one thing that stayed in my mind from that film. In Hamnet, the soil, the grass, the trees, and the weather are felt as much as seen. It is visceral, and this earthiness is closely tied to Agnes, whose character is imagined as instinctively connected to the natural world. The landscape becomes an extension of her inner life rather than just a backdrop. I'm not fully convinced that this has much to do with Shakespeare, but as cinema, it does work well. I have mixed feelings about the acting. There is such subtlety in Zhao's early work. In Hamnet, the performances are undeniably impressive. Jessie Buckley delivers a formidable display. It's a masterclass in acting, but it's also full on and in your face. It's acting with a capital A. The performance is so in the foreground that I found myself watching the acting rather than fully believing in the character. I saw the film on one of the large Dolby Vision screens in Leicester Square. There are many full-screen close-ups of Buckley's face. Every emotion is presented through the smallest facial movement. It feels bigger than the film itself. I also felt some sympathy for Paul Mescal. His performance is quieter and more contained, but he's completely overshadowed. This imbalance establishes Agnes as the emotional centre of the film, with William held at something of a distance. Again, this doesn't really feel like a film about Shakespeare. I know that many people are enjoying the emotional journey of this film, but I was never fully engaged with it. The story itself feels a bit structurally uneasy for me. The early courting scenes struck me as superficial, and when tragedy arrives, the film leans heavily on performance, music, and close framing to generate feeling. It tells the audience what to feel, rather than allowing emotion to emerge through character and situation. The result for me is melodrama rather than depth. It's emotionally manipulative. There's very little subtlety here. I did have the expectation that this is a film about Shakespeare, but by the end I felt less and less that the film is primarily about him. It's more of a meditation on death, grief, and sacrifice. it also layers in mysticism and spiritual attunement to nature. Agnes is portrayed as a healer, a visionary, an archetypal earthbound mother. This is a powerful modern figure, but it's almost entirely fictional. It has little grounding in what's known of Anne Hathaway. At the same time, the film clearly evokes Shakespeare, drawing on the aura of this cultural giant. I have the feeling that the film wants the authority of history, but the freedom of invention away from the facts. For me, the tension between the two never fully resolves. This becomes most apparent in the film's link to the play Hamlet. The supposed correspondence rests on a few coincidences, a death, a ghost, a grieving family, but the differences are greater than the similarities. Hamlet is a political tragedy about a son haunted by his murdered father. Hamnet is a domestic drama about a mother and father haunted by their dead child. The film imposes a connection rather than uncovering one. I have the sense that it borrows Shakespeare's cultural heritage while telling a story that is largely its own creation. This isn't only a choice made by the film, of course. It's built into the premise of Maggie O'Farrell's novel, which the film follows closely. The story draws power from the Shakespeare story, even as it invents a world that's only loosely connected to his life and work. And for me, this ultimately feels a little bit cheap and superficial. I also think that the film raises an ethical question in a way that's a bit unsatisfying. William is shown as driven, but absent and sometimes angry. Agnes bears the burden of childcare and emotional labour. The film frames this as sacrifice in service of art. Because as an audience we recognise Shakespeare's eventual greatness, his neglect for his family is softened by this historical hindsight. But if this were a story about an ordinary man chasing ambition at the cost of his family, the judgment could be a bit harsher, I think. The film relies on Shakespeare's legacy to justify this imbalance. None of this makes Hamnet a failure in its craft. It's beautifully made, carefully performed, it's earnest in its ambitions, but it left me feeling that the emotional impact was too manufactured, and that the film leans too heavily on Shakespeare's cultural shadow for significance, without offering enough of a substantive link to his life or work. Particularly the gestures towards Hamlet feel shoehorned in, asking the play to supply depth that the film's own narrative doesn't fully generate. For all its visual beauty and technical accomplishment, it feels closer to a polished Hollywood drama than to the kind of distinctive art house filmmaking that Zhao is capable of. It may win admiration, people are clearly enjoying it, and that definitely counts for something. For me, however, I was disappointed by the ordinariness of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.